Time is the unseen force that leads all things to their conclusions. Despite our best efforts to oppose it, we, like Ozymandias in the sands, are destined to fail. What of our aspirations to merely preserve the memory of what has been? In this essay, I will delve into my perspective on the history of cinema that has been lost to time and may never be recovered. From the untold ending of The Magnificent Ambersons to the hazy memory of how The Matrix really looked when it was released in theaters. The fate of these moments of cinematic history remain uncertain. On October 28th, 1941, production of The Magnificent Ambersons began. Led by the now iconic Orson Welles, it was not the first attempt to adapt the Pulitzer Prize-winning 1918 book of the same name. But with the recent commercial failure of Citizen Kane, and the subsequent falling out between Welles and RKO Pictures, Welles would not be returning to set with nearly the creative sway he'd come accustomed to during the production of Citizen Kane. By March 17th, a rough cut of the original film was screened to test audiences, and test them it did, leading to an overall mixed reception. Revisions were made, but to a minimal improvement in audience opinion. While ideally more tinkering would have taken place, Welles was obliged to leave for Brazil on his similarly doomed project It's All True, as part of the Good Neighbor program that had been set up by Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. Welles had been especially asked for by Nelson Rockefeller, who was at the time on the board of directors at RKO, who then went on to seize the opportunity to completely reshoot the ending of the film to better align with the book's mood, and lopped off a whopping 40 minutes off of the original runtime. Welles was gutted by the changes that were made against his will, saying, "RKO absolutely betrayed me, and never gave me a shot at it," going on to say, "I was absolutely certain of its value, much more than that of Kane." Due to the fact that celluloid film takes up physical space, and a lot of it, the excised 40 minutes made up almost 4,000 feet of film, all of which was to be burned to create space in the RKO Pictures archive, meaning that the original performances of the cast were never seen by the public, and never will be. And while the intended ending exists still within Welles' screenplay and a speculated test print that was allegedly sent to Welles' home but has never been found, there have been a handful of restoration efforts, including an animated reconstruction, but no project to date has been successful. The most promising ongoing restoration was announced on September 5th of 2025. It is an Amazon-backed artificial intelligence reconstruction. While I imagine that there are many people elated to finally watch The Magnificent Ambersons as it was initially written, I am led to wonder if Welles would have been as pleased to see the creation of his ideal ending taken out of his, and arguably all human filmmakers' hands, once again, by a corporation choosing to save money rather than respect the vision of an artist. On the 8th of December, 1995, Ghost in the Shell, an adaptation of the 1980s manga of the same name, released in cinemas in the UK. It covered femininity, the cyberpunk future, and the capitulation of humanity to the greed of corporations. Three things that would go on to change the rest of the Wachowski sisters' lives. Having only directed a mildly successful noir film before, the sisters would go on to irreversibly shape the face of all Western cyberpunk media, with the creation of The Matrix. However, it is at this point we reach something of an oddity with The Matrix. As anyone who has watched the film can attest, it is remarkably green. In fact, in a fan interview with the sisters, they said the whole motif was inspired by a phosphorus green of old PCs. But depending on where you watch the film, you may have a different experience of the shade of green that they are referring to, as the color grade between the DVD, the cinema release, and the Blu-ray are significantly different. And, once you factor in much later the 4K DVD print, you are faced with three separate shades of green, the existence of all of which begs the question, which one is the correct shade of green? At first blush, it is a fairly simple inquiry, but once we try to find any form of solid evidence to support any supposedly correct answer to that, we fall into a rabbit hole of opinion, interpretation, and vague recollections. First, we must address the initial physical release, the DVDs. The art director of the original Xbox game Enter the Matrix, Robert Nessler, recalls a conversation with Owen Patterson, the Matrix production designer. Patterson explained to us that he never felt the DVDs got it right. The method for shifting colors in the film was called color timing, and it was a manual/analog process. For whatever reason, when the DVDs were made, that quality was not matched exactly. These inaccuracies were then addressed in the 4K DVD release much later. Jan Yarborough allegedly stated that he wanted it to be even more accurate than the original, which is a statement that seems inconspicuous on its face, but upon closer inspection means nothing at all. What of the original? Surely, with so many people attempting to recreate the same thing, there must be a definable aim for us. As it turns out, everyone mentioned so far likely saw distinct grades of the film, due to the fact that Warner Bros. Has many different distribution centers, and at the time these centers did not have a standardized photochemical process for preparing reels for screening. Processes which, when performed, are liable to slightly alter the way that the color of the film looks when projected onto the screen. Furthermore, even if you were able to procure a copy of the reel that was shown in 1999, due to the several decades that have passed since then, the film will likely have faded. Polyester film, which I am guessing The Matrix was filmed on, as it was standard for the time, and there is no evidence that contradicts that it was, may fade rapidly at the room temperature, if not suitably stored even for a short time. Put simply, there is no entirely accurate record of what The Matrix looked like upon release, and even if you were to find someone with an immaculate recollection of their experience, it would not be representative of the experience of someone who saw it on the same day at a different theatre. It is somewhat poetic that a film so richly steeped in philosophical subtext should have no one true form, and instead have a wide variety of interpretations from person to person. While it is reasonable to see these pieces of cinema history, scattered to the winds of times, as just one of many such elements of trivia that slip away from us every second, I believe that these things deserve their reverence, as two exceptionally rare instances of a loss that we're able to feel the absence of. While I do not necessarily think these should be pried from the hands of time, through endless reconstruction or reinterpretation, until we find a facsimile of a vaguely remembered anecdote of what the creator wanted, I believe that we should see losses like these as the idols of everything we've lost, but not had a clear sense that there was anything to begin with. Every day, we lose another veteran of the industry, who likely could have been the last person who knew something about film history. I see these silhouettes of lost knowledge not as tragedies to be mourned, but a celebration of the impermanence of art.
All those moments will be lost in time, like